Thanks, Tony. I'm in two minds about whether I like being called a heavyweight. I'm on a diet and I'm off booze for January, so I'm a bit crotchety. Sorry about that. As Tony says, I'm Simon Keema. I'm the lead consultant and chief executive of Keema, which is a public relations agency based here in Jacksonville and in Washington, DC. We're a small agency. We specialise in public affairs, corporate communications and crisis management. We've actually been here for 5 years, based in Jacksonville, headquartered in Jacksonville, but not many people have heard of us, which is something that I'm going to discuss as a case study as we progress. I'm very grateful to Tony and to Joey and to Dave and the rest of the Wingard team. I wrote a blog post which was basically the foundation of this presentation and put it on my blog. You know, the tyranny of social media is you've got to keep putting content up there, and I'm as bad as everyone else. So I threw up this a version of this presentation, and Tony surprised me by saying, "Wow, that's really good. You're giving away the milk for free." You know, I don't mind doing that, and I hope that you're going to get some insight into how you can use public relations. We are a public relations agency. I'd love to say we're advertising, creative, marketing, SEO. I'd love to say social media. I'd love to say we're all those things, but we're not. We're just a public relations specialist. That's not to say that we don't use social media and online strategies. Of course we do. It would be ridiculous not to. The subject of my talk is public relations done properly. Let's put my slide up. So it's always a relief when a gizmo works correctly. Public relations done properly. We have some fairly well-developed thinking about how public relations should work, and some experience in approaches that work and approaches that don't work. I will say that over the years, as I've become more experienced and worked with more and more clients, the episodes of public relations failure are getting fewer and fewer, and public relations success are becoming more prevalent as a proportion of our output, which I'm sure is very reassuring to our clients, our current clients and any future clients. I should observe, because people always wonder about this, you know, I'm from Mississippi originally, and no, I'm not really. I'm English, but I've lived here a long time. Now, public relations done properly is the subject of my talk. I make no apologies for the fact that this is going to focus a little bit more on strategy and methodology than putting in your hands sort of practical, tactical hints for getting, I don't know, media coverage or whatever it is you might think public relations represents. It is really about opening your eyes to the things public relations can do for businesses and individuals, organisations of all kinds, and outlining the sort of the approach, the methodology that we use to make sure that it's done properly. With the idea being that if you do embark upon any public relations activities, sticking to a methodology like ours, a planning and strategic outreach framework like ours, will stop you from wasting your time and money, which I'm sure is of great significance to you guys who own your own businesses. I mean, to be honest, we don't work for many small businesses. That's something that I want to change. But we are a small business, and the small business we do the most marketing and public relations support for is us, my own business. So I think we've got some insight that will be useful to you. I told you that we believe in social media. You know, it's fundamentally changed the way we communicate, and that has huge ramifications for public relations. So I put up our Twitter handle. Please follow us. Also, I sort of jumped the gun a little bit. I put up my own hashtag KeemaCC. creative company, so you can tweet specifically about this. Tweet whatever you like. And you know, we'll talk a bit about measures and measures of effect in a minute, measures of effective communications. You know, the number of you guys who sign up to follow us on Twitter, that's what it's called, right? Follow us on Twitter. That's a measure of some sort. I would argue that it's not a measure of effect, though. The effect that the communications effect, of this talk, which I've defined, is not measurable in terms of the number of you guys who follow us on Twitter, and I'll come back to that. If it's rather cryptic, you're like, what on earth are you talking about? Okay, so as I said, you know, the aim is to open your eyes to what public relations can do for your businesses or your interests. You know, I will use the business model to discuss this, but it can be pretty much for anything. Any challenge that you face, I think public relations can play a part in resolving it. The first part of the presentation, I'll just quickly go through what public relations is, how it can help, and then I'll go into some detail on our methodology for making it effective, doing it properly. So what is public relations? Well, when I was writing this presentation, I looked up on the internet the current definitions for public relations, and I knew there'd all be something about building goodwill and understanding between that sort of thing. And sure enough, the first one was precisely that. The first one comes from Public Relations Society of America, that Gus Body, who take $400 off me every year and give me pretty much nothing in return. Public relations practice is the planned and sustained effort to establish and maintain goodwill and mutual understanding between an organisation and its publics. You know, we don't need to go into any more detail than that. You know, it's fairly self-explanatory. If you want to know how we define publics, we can talk about that later. The second one, I decided to sort of be more fundamental and go to the dictionary. How does the dictionary define the business of generating goodwill towards an individual, cause, company or product? I actually quite like this definition. You know, individual, cause, company or product. I think that's a good way to sum things up. In fact, I'm probably going to start using that. Merriam-Webster being a US dictionary, I decided we needed to visit the mother country to the old country, so I looked it up in the Encyclopedia Britannica, and it was defined as the aspect of communication that involves promoting a desirable image for a person or a group seeking public attention. You know, nonsense. I was rather ashamed to go back to such a sort of, you know, the Encyclopedia Britannica is 200 odd years old, so I decided to kick it up a notch, go to Wikipedia, which bizarrely defined it as public relations is the 11th episode of the TV comedy series Arrested Development. Of all those definitions, that was my favourite, but not the most helpful. So I've taken it upon myself to define public relations. You know, it's a fairly sort of arrogant thing to do, I think, but it really makes sense to me. And pretty much everything you're going to hear in this talk is thought that we have developed. You know, we have, over the years, working at big agencies in this country and elsewhere, working for clients of all sizes, for huge global brands, for smaller, innovative businesses. You know, I've developed a great deal of thinking about what it is public relations can do, and so I've invented my own definition, which it's okay. I wouldn't laugh if I was talking to the PR folks, I promise you. But I've invented my own definition of public relations. Here it is. Public relations is a toolkit that provides organisations and individuals with the means to address and resolve their most pressing challenges through the careful and applied exertion of influence. Does that make sense to anyone? I'm going to read it again. I was in the army till I was 30 years old, and you know, you're all supposed to read the important part of your orders twice, so I'm going to do that. Public relations is a toolkit that provides organisations and individuals with the means to address and resolve their most pressing challenges through the careful and applied exertion of influence. Okay, influence. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to influence people. We're trying to compel or convince them. We're trying to get them to buy things. We're trying to get them to support things. We're trying to get them to take action as a result of our communications. Okay, influence. Scary stuff, I know. But it really is all about psychology. I mean, what we are trying to do is flick a switch in the minds of our target audiences, which will compel or convince them to act in the way we want them to. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It's a psychological effect. And we're going to talk about effect, because that is basically the fundamental, the crux of our methodology. So we're looking for a psychological effect. Business challenges. Again, think about the psychological effect that you would have to have in the effect of the psychological effect you'd have to have in the brains of certain people to address your business challenges. What are your business challenges? You sit there as a business owner or an advisor to business or a personal brand. What are you facing? You know, the obvious ones are sales and growth. You know, as a small business owner, those two things eat me up. The 10% of the time I'm not doing client work. But how do we sell more new business? And how do we grow the business? My point is that all of these business challenges can be addressed through the application of influence, i.e. a public relations strategy. Let me just regroup here for a second. Yeah, I mean, some of the examples of the kind of business challenges that we as an agency, provide for our provide support for our clients are, you know, an established business looking for a competitive edge in a commoditized market, right? Commoditized markets are notoriously difficult to get a competitive edge in. A trade group facing new laws that would be disastrous for its members. A large tech firm coping with a significant internal reorganisation and change. A small, medium-sized enterprise preparing for product launch. A joint venture facing unwarranted and unfair criticism that's affecting its bottom line. Okay? Those are the kind of, you know, those are just examples of of the kind of business challenges that we are helping clients to address. But I want you all, throughout this process, to think about the kind of business challenges that you guys are facing and try and apply what I'm going to tell you to that challenge. So even though the methodology that I'm going to outline we use for, you know, big companies, small, medium companies, medium-sized companies, you know, it's scalable. It can be used to address your challenges, and it can be used by companies of all sizes. Is everyone following me so far? Yep. Okay, good. So, we've talked about the importance of influence, we've talked about the kind of business challenges you might face. This is the toolkit. You remember I defined it as a toolkit that helps you address your business challenges by the careful application of influence. These are just some examples, you know, but strategic programs, media strategy is obvious. You know, we do a lot of media relations even today. New media strategy, that's just online and social media combined. You know, there's got to be a time when we stop calling it new media, but you know, for the time being, we do analyst programs, corporate social responsibility, internal communications, and rebranding. Some of the outreach examples: news management, opinion pieces, grassroots engagement, consumer advocacy. That's getting your people who buy from you to talk about you in a nice way. And then other activities, we've talked about third-party advocacy, which is a huge part of the services we provide to our clients, and should be a huge part of every public relations plan. Alliance building, opposition neutralisation, that's more political, but it's all to do with elbowing your competition out of the way. So those are the sort of tools we're talking about. I wanted to give you an idea of the practical and tactical tools that we use before we go into the sort of, you know, the methodology or that we use to make sure we use those tools correctly. Lot of uses of the word use, sorry.